Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the world we all live in, using a field of study that's all about, well, us. We're diving deep into the science of society, sociology. So, this is the official textbook definition. And yeah, it's a good starting point. It covers all the bases. But let's be honest, it doesn't quite capture the real power or the excitement of what sociology is all about. There's a much more fascinating way to think about it. You see, sociology often gets this pretty epic title, the mother of all social sciences. That's a huge claim, right? So what does that actually mean? How can one single field be the foundation for so many others?
To get that, we really need to understand the true scope of sociology and why it holds this really unique title. So let's break down what it really means to be the mother of sciences.
Okay, think of it like this. Society is this giant, sprawling laboratory where all human action happens. Now, economics might study the financial transactions going on in one corner of the lab, and political science might study the power dynamics and who's in charge. But sociology? Sociology studies the lab itself, the container, the rules, the culture, the very structure that everything else happens inside of.
To really sharpen our focus, let's put sociology side by side with some of its neighbors. Seeing how it's different from other social sciences is going to make its unique perspective crystal clear. Let's start with history. A historian might give you a brilliant, detailed account of a specific revolution, the dates, the key players, the battles. But a sociologist looks at that revolution, and 20 others, to find the common threads. They're asking a totally different question. What are the general social conditions that tend to lead to revolutions in the first place? One describes the what, the other analyzes the why.
Okay, what about psychology? A psychologist looks inward, right? They're focused on the individual mind, our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. But a sociologist, they look outward. They're asking how groups, institutions, and whole societies shape our behavior. The key difference is the zoom level. Is it the individual, or is it the social world they're living in?
And this table here, it really sums it all up beautifully. While history is focused on specific events, sociology is looking for those general patterns. Anthropology traditionally studied simpler, non-literate societies, while sociology tackles our modern, complex ones. Psychology is all about the individual mind, sociology is about the group. And while economics zooms in on just our financial lives, sociology takes a wide-angle view of all our social relationships. It's that incredibly broad perspective that really sets it apart.
All right, enough with the definitions and comparisons. Let's see how this sociological lens actually works in the real world. And we're going to start with a topic we all think we know inside and out: gender. Now, from a sociological perspective, what we think of as masculine or feminine isn't just about biology. It's what we call a social construct. That's really just a way of saying that it's our society and our culture that create the rules, the expectations, and the roles we associate with being a man or a woman. And the work of anthropologist Margaret Mead is the perfect, mind-blowing example of this. She studied 3 different tribal societies, and what she found was just astounding. In the Arapesh tribe, both men and women were gentle and nurturing. In the Mundugumor tribe, both were aggressive and competitive. And get this, in the Chambali tribe, the roles were completely flipped from what many of us would consider normal. The women were dominant and assertive, while the men were more passive and emotional. This amazing variety just shows that gender roles aren't set in stone by nature. So that leads to the big sociological question, right? If they aren't fixed, then how are they formed? And what purpose do they even serve in a society? This exact same question about how society creates categories can be used to understand other really powerful social structures. So let's take that same sociological lens and apply it to another huge concept that shapes millions of lives: social hierarchy, specifically looking at things like caste and class. The caste system is an incredibly powerful example of this kind of social layering. Sociologists have basically boiled it down to a few core features. First, there's a super strict hierarchy, often based on ideas of purity. Second, your job was traditionally hereditary. You did what your parents did. And third, there were very strict rules, especially about who you could marry, all designed to keep the groups separate from each other. And this is key. This shows us that caste is not just a social or religious system. As sociologist Joan Mancher points out, there's a caste-class nexus.
This social hierarchy is deeply, deeply tangled up with economic inequality, and it's been used as a tool for economic exploitation. The social structure literally creates the economic reality for people. So we've defined sociology, we've seen it in action, looking at gender and caste. But what's the big takeaway here? Why does learning to see the world through this lens actually matter in our day-to-day lives? It matters because once you start using the sociological lens, you can never really see the world the same way again. It's like you start to recognize the invisible forces all around you, the social structures, the cultural norms, the historical patterns that are constantly shaping our lives, our choices, and our opportunities. It reveals the hidden architecture of our world. And that really leaves us with one final and, I think, powerful question to think about. We've talked about society in these big abstract terms, but what about your world? What are the invisible social forces, your class, your education, your cultural background, that are shaping the person you are today? Thanks for joining us.